Following on from the introduction to DUIK tools, what I want to do is show you how to use them in conjunction with puppet pins, and it's a pretty simple process. So I'm going to just create a new composition, and I'm going to draw out a basic leg shape. This is done, to be honest, this is on the DUIK website, and it's really clear the way they do it. But if you're trying to watch the subtitles as it's in French, and also trying to keep an eye on what the actions that's happening at the same time, it can be a little bit tricky. But their tutorials are fantastic, so it's definitely worth trying those out. So what I'm going to do is I've just created a leg with a standard mask on it, and I'm going to add some puppet pins to it, just using the puppet pin tool. And I'm just going to pop one in there, in the hip, the knee, and the ankle. And what I want to do is, with these puppet pins, they are, they're handy controls, as people using them may be familiar with, but they're not under any. You can, I think, you might be able to put them in a hierarchy, but you can, in the same way as with the arm, they will only work in the same way as kind of forward kinematics, in terms of it's not that convenient if you want to put this foot on the ground and then move the hip. It can get kind of tricky, and then if you want to sort of have more control and move the ankle and have the knee move at the same time, so we want to create an IK chain. So what we'll do is I'm going to select this leg, and then I'm going to click on bones, and the bones that are created are in the positions of the puppet pins that I placed. I'm going to rename these. They're all nulls. I'm just going to rename them to ankle. And again, just doing this renaming is really important for the purposes of expression controls. So definitely a habit you need to get into. So I've got my hip, knee, and ankle in there. I want to have a controller, so I'm gonna. It would be useful if I select the right thing first. So I'm going to select the ankle bone, which is where I want to control the leg from. Add in a controller there, which appears, and then I want to put in an IK chain, and it's the same principle as with the IK using separate shapes. I'm going to go from the lowest in the hierarchy. In fact, I'm going to create the hierarchy first. Just going to do the pick whip, move the ankle under the knee hierarchy, and then the knee under the hip hierarchy. So we do have a hierarchy in there already. Otherwise, the IK, if I don't do that, the IK won't have a hierarchy to latch onto. So if you're trying to put inverse kinematics together and there's no hierarchy, so an ankle isn't connected to a knee isn't connected to a hip, where there's no parent-child relationship, the IK won't know what to move first, and that's why I've got to parent these up and make sure there's a hierarchy. So just as before, if I move the hip bone here, if I can just do that, and rotate it round, it'll rotate everything, and then if I rotate the knee round, it'll rotate everything plus everything below the knee. So, and then finally the ankle. So oops, and that's not rotating anything. Because so what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the IK controller to these, clicking the lowest one first, ankle, knee, hip, and then going back to the ankle control, and then I'm going to click IK. For this one, I'm going to leave stretch on, and I'll show you why. I'll just click on OK, and what this will give us is a controller that then moves the leg around. It not only does that, but it will also allow us to stretch the leg, which is really, really handy. So it's a very, very useful tool, as you can see, not just for animating individual masks and putting them in an IK chain, but also manipulating puppet pins. So now I can create a walk, I can place my foot down where I need it to be, I can move the bone in the hip, and I can move the bone across. Now what you may have noticed is when I do that, the toe will dip the foot will dip because there's no pin on the toe of the foot. And I'm just going to fix this by selecting the mesh again. Just going to take a puppet pin and I'm going to just pop a pin in here. I'm going to go through the same process again. So I've got the pin in there and I'm going to add a bone in, and I'm going to rename that bone toes, and I'm going to parent those toes to the ankle bone using the pick whip. And then what should happen is when I grab the controller and I move it around, hopefully, yes, I have control over that foot, and I can rotate the controller around in order to dip and move the foot around. So it's very bendy. So as you may have noticed, so obviously there's the tools that you can use if you're familiar with puppet pins. You've got tools such as the starch tool. So I can use the starch tool. If I select that, I can let's have a look. I can starch certain areas. So if I put in a pin in there, I'll pop one in the middle of, say, the leg, and another one in there. And the starch tool serves to it will serve to stiffen certain areas. So I'm going to increase the extent of, say, the thigh area, so I get a bit of bend in the knee still. And just using this tool again, just click on it, it'll turn to an arrow when you hover over a pin, so there's no special selection tool for this. And select that starch point there and increase the extent of that, and you can see it's using the starting position, but it's still remaining, it's still keeping to the shape that I've created using the controllers, and that's perfectly normal. And I'm going to just take this toe and I'm also going to increase the extent of it as well, just so that we stop getting so much flex in there. So now when I move this controller around, there's some stiffness to the leg in there. And I can also rotate the controller as well, and the toe will rotate with it. The other thing I can do, because I'm using this controller, the properties, it's not just in null, it's a really handy item that I can control. If I go into effects controls, I can turn on the goal, turn it on and off. So if I need to get a kick, for instance, where I just need that foot to follow the leg, I can just turn the goal tick box on and off, and I can key that, so I can turn it on if I want to make sure that the foot is flat to the floor and move it round in that way, and I can also turn it off if I want to do like a kick motion or something like that. So as you can see, hopefully it's a really powerful tool. It's fantastic for creating your and animating your characters. And you can use this obviously with masks, but also if you've got a bitmap or something that you've brought in and you want to manipulate it in that way, that'll work just fine as well.